I'm 27, male. I've been with my girlfriend Michelle, 24, for about a year now. She's not the most materialistic person, which is why I was a little taken aback when she took to this new habit of joking about our finances a couple of days ago. We moved in together into her apartment 2 weeks ago since it was cheaper to just live together instead of one of us traveling to see each other every day. And ever since that happened, our finances have also merged because we're now splitting the rent, groceries, and other stuff. She initially would joke about how she wouldn't need to worry about paying for anything if she'd started dating a millionaire and we'd live happily ever after, and I just laugh it off because I know she was joking, and who wouldn't want to be with a millionaire as a joke though? But then recently her friend Claire started dating this guy called Thomas, and he's insanely rich. His dad is a movie director and his mom's a producer, so it's a pretty killer life for them, and he himself is training under his dad to make his acting debut. He's a really good looking guy too, and I know for a fact that he's exactly my girlfriend's type, since he looks like all the celebrity crushes she's had ever since she was a child, merged into one human being. In short, he's a 10 out of 10. And I'm not usually an insecure guy, but this guy did make me think about myself really hard because the first time that Claire introduced us to him, Michelle wasn't even able to take her eyes off of him and kept staring at him with an open mouth, like in a cartoon. I actually had to nudge her to remind her that this was her friend's boyfriend, and her own boyfriend was standing right beside her. That incident definitely was a hit for me, and after that day, my girlfriend started making jokes about how it'd be better if she just started dating Thomas instead of me, and how much easier life would be then. I managed to dismiss it as a joke the first couple of times, but then she started saying it more often, and it just got to me. I was already feeling insecure about myself because of the way she'd reacted when she'd first met him, and now this. It didn't help that I genuinely didn't think that this Thomas guy was way better than me. He was richer, better looking, and even smarter than most of us. It was hard not to feel jealous of someone so seemingly perfect, and even more so when your own girlfriend kept reminding you of it. 3 days ago, Claire asked us to accompany her on a double date with her and Thomas, and while I'd initially tried to make up excuses and reasons to stay out of it, she wouldn't take no for an answer, and I ended up going. Yesterday we met toward the evening for dinner and drinks, and the whole time that we were there, my girlfriend kept glancing at Thomas. Claire didn't seem to notice it, but I did. At one point he excused himself to take a call, and Claire started telling us about the bracelet that he'd bought for her on a whim. It looked crazy expensive, and I knew that I couldn't just buy something like that for Michelle on a whim and would probably have to save for months. I was praying and hoping that she wouldn't make any comment about it, but she did, and yet again said how she envied Claire and said she wished she was his girlfriend instead. She was laughing while saying it, and so was Claire. But I couldn't let it slide and got annoyed. I guess this is where I might have been the a-hole, because instead of addressing it later or in private, I snapped at her and said that if she likes him so much, then maybe she should actually be with him instead. After saying that, I left the restaurant we were at and took a cab back home. There, I packed some of my clothes and essentials and headed straight to my cousin's house, who happened to live nearby. My cousin and I have always been close, and so when I explained the situation to him, he readily agreed to let me stay at his place until things were sorted out with my girlfriend. After I cooled off, I did realize that I probably shouldn't have reacted that way and thought things through, but it was too late for that. And my cousin reassured me that I wasn't crazy for feeling insecure, because Michelle was literally going out of her way to compare me to her friend's boyfriend, and that wasn't okay. I'd never done that to her and never would, because I know it might be hurtful. I wouldn't even do it as a joke. And it's not like I'm not trying to be a good boyfriend to her, but my resources are limited and I don't have rich parents like him either. But I'm making the best of what I have so that she doesn't feel unloved or unimportant to me. I take her out for dinner every chance I get and buy her gifts almost every month just to remind her what she means to me, and she does the same for me as well. The difference is that I'm grateful for it, but I'm not sure anymore that she feels the same way for the efforts that I put in. I was hurt and angry last time, so I turned off my phone and went to sleep. This morning I woke up feeling like absolute crap and decided that before heading to work, I'd stop by at my girlfriend's apartment and try to talk to her. She hadn't texted or called even once after my outburst last night, and honestly, I couldn't even blame her. So I went to meet her, but it didn't go really well. She was cold towards me and barely even said anything until I brought up what had happened last night. Before I could even say anything, she cut me off and told me that she wasn't willing to discuss anything unless I apologized to her and her friend for the way I behaved first and foremost. I was kind of taken aback since, while I did intend to apologize, I also wanted her to apologize for what she'd been doing. It was obviously not entirely my fault for reacting the way I did, since she'd been the one pushing me, even if she didn't intend to. And yes, I did owe her friend an apology as well, but she didn't need to boss me around like that. It really rubbed me the wrong way, and well, things weren't good in the first place, so then they just went from bad to worse. I flared up and said to her that I'd apologize only if she did first for the way that she'd been making cruel and insensitive jokes at my expense. We went back and forth for a few minutes playing the blame game, but eventually I gave up since I was getting late for work. I told her before leaving that what she'd done was out of line and disrespectful, and she said that she could say the same for me as well. I left for work in an awful mood and spent the rest of the day in the same way. It's almost been 24 hours since the incident and we're still in a deadlock. I'm not enjoying any of this, obviously. I just want my girlfriend back. But I also don't want to be the sucker who apologizes even when it isn't his fault. I've heard loads of my friends complaining about how their girlfriends expect them to just say that they're sorry, even if they're not in the wrong for the sake of the relationship, and I never understood why. I might be a little egoistic for saying this, but I don't think it's fair to apologize if you're not actually at fault. And as for Michelle, she hasn't even pretended to be sorry for what she'd been doing, and even while we were arguing, she kept bringing up the fact that she'd joked about stuff like this earlier as well, and I'd laughed along with her, so it didn't make sense for me to get mad at something like this all of a sudden. If she didn't notice the fact that I wasn't laughing at her so-called jokes after wanting to date Thomas anymore, then that's on her, and maybe she should pay more attention to how I react. But yeah, all that being said, I still love her and don't want to fight with her anymore. So I'm here to ask for help because I genuinely don't know if I'm in the wrong here or not. So here goes. AITA for snapping at my girlfriend in front of her friend after she kept making jokes about wanting to be with said friend's boyfriend. Update 1. After reading some of the responses here, I decided to go ahead and apologize to my girlfriend first. I realized that I was actually letting my pride get in the way of our relationship, and that wasn't healthy. That's not to say that whatever Michelle had been doing was healthy either, since she'd been pushing me to my very limit with her inappropriate jokes. It's been 2 days since the last update, and after mulling over it for one day, I finally apologized to her this morning. I headed up to her apartment with a bouquet of pink tulips, her favorite flowers, and a box of chocolates. She's really into rom-coms, so I knew for a fact that this would work. Her face lit up as she saw me standing there, and it didn't even take her a second to apologize, saying that she'd already been planning to visit me at my cousin's place today so that she could apologize in person. She admitted that she was being incredibly stupid and insensitive for joking about something like that, and promised never to say such things. She also said that while she did think Thomas was objectively cute, she really wasn't into him because she couldn't imagine any other guy in her life apart from me. And I owned up to my fault as well and said that I should have told her that her jokes about Thomas had been bothering me instead of pretending to be nonchalant and then snapping at her out of the blue. Moreover, her obsession with finances and stuff really stemmed from the fact that she'd grown up dirt poor and could barely ever afford to have nice things, and she worked really hard to get to where she is today. So, while she tried not to show it in the initial months of our relationship out of fear, and I'd write her off as a gold digger, material things and money did mean a lot to her. And once we'd moved in together, she thought that she could finally talk about that side of hers as well, even if it was through stupid jokes, so that she'd ease me up to the fact that money was important to her. Moreover, she'd also been thinking about quitting her job, which is why money was all that was on her mind. It explained a lot of her behavior. Truth be told, then, she understands that she was going about it the wrong way entirely. But yeah, things worked out pretty well for the both of us. And I'm happy that I went ahead and put my ego aside to win her back. I'm hoping things work out well now. Update 2. I'm back again because things have become a little messy. Not between me and Michelle, thankfully, but Claire and Thomas. 3 days have passed since my girlfriend and I made up on the same day. I also apologized to Claire for the way I acted in front of her, and she accepted it as well. But I guess she must have told Thomas about the whole outburst and treated the situation as a joke, and that guy actually thought my girlfriend was hitting on him secretly or alike. This was a sign from her that she wanted him. So today, Michelle showed me a text from Thomas asking her out on a date in the evening. She looked abashed, and obviously she'd said no and told him that she was already with me and intended on staying with me too, so he didn't have a chance. And that whatever she'd been saying had been nothing more than a joke. She wasn't actually into him or anything. She's really just upset about this whole thing because this means that she'll have to tell Claire about what he texted her as well and expose him for trying to cheat on her with her own friend. She was blaming herself for this entire situation since none of this would have happened if she'd not made these stupid jokes in the first place, and as much as I hate to say it, it's probably true. Although the fact that Thomas is trying to hit on her is not really her fault, since if he was a decent guy, then he would have just ignored it all or maybe just refused to hang out with us anymore, and he would have respected that as well. She's probably going to tell Claire in a while, but before that, she's not apologizing to me profusely since she feels she messed up big time and whatever she'd said earlier wasn't enough. Obviously, I've already forgiven her, but I still feel bad that she's having to go through this at all. I mean, this is just a bad situation to land up in. I'm hoping Claire takes it easy on her and dumps the boyfriend instead now. Update 3. She told Claire a couple of minutes ago, and man, she totally lost it. I could hear her yelling through the phone, even though she wasn't even on speaker at the time. She screamed at Michelle for several minutes about how she was not only ruining her own relationship, but now hers as well, and that she'd always suspected that something of the sort was going to happen someday. She told Michelle off for trying to steal such a catch from her, and accused her of actively sabotaging our relationship so that she could have Thomas all to herself. Obviously, Michelle didn't say a word because she knew that it was all happening due to her insensitive jokes, but I, for one, thought the sabotaging bit was taking it too far. I didn't say anything because it was between her and her friend, or else I might have. And this is honestly just such a complicated situation that I don't even know who's right and who's wrong. This just sucks for her. Update 4. 2 days have passed since Michelle told Claire about what her boyfriend had tried to do, and while Claire did block Michelle and me everywhere, she still hasn't broken up with Thomas, which is none of our business, I guess. But what is our business is the fact that she's been telling everyone that Michelle was trying to hit on Thomas right in front of her when we were out on a date, and when the poor guy decided to tell her to stop because he was uncomfortable, she got mad at both of them, and I was just a silent spectator. Now I know why she cooked up with a ridiculous story. But I guess it makes sense, because in the real story, she'd actually been laughing along with Michelle when she made that joke, and that wouldn't go down well with our friends if it was sympathy that she was looking for. People have been texting Michelle and me for gossip almost constantly, and even though she accepted and owned up to her mistakes earlier, this is not okay. She didn't do anything of the sort that Claire has been suggesting, so neither of us understand why she should take the fall for it and not her catch of a boyfriend. Truth be told, I'm not even sure she has genuine feelings for him. If she did, she wouldn't have laughed it off when Michelle made that joke like I didn't. And she certainly wouldn't have said that he was a catch that Michelle was trying to steal. Claire has always had an affinity for rich guys, and we don't have an issue with that, very honestly, but the fact that she's trying to portray us in an awful light while she herself is the saint, that just doesn't sit right with me, and I guess at one point or another, we're going to have to set the record straight, even if it means going public with whatever Michelle said. And she's not afraid of acknowledging the fact that she messed up by cracking that joke either. Very honestly, but she's ready to acknowledge it and even apologize for it. But she shouldn't have to pretend to be sorry for something she hasn't even done. And neither should I, because several of our so-called friends who started taking digs at me as well because of whatever Claire's been saying about us, that I should learn how to control my woman, as if this is the 50s or something. Don't understand why I'm at fault in any way here, but whatever. As long as Michelle tells everyone what actually happened, I know we're good to go. I just want this whole thing to be done with. Update 5. Hey guys, a few days ago Michelle posted the real story online, and by now I think most of the people who Claire had been talking crap about know the truth. Michelle did own up to the fact that the joke she made was crass and insensitive and obviously in bad taste, and even apologized for it to Claire and Thomas and me publicly. I'm obviously already forgiven her, so that wasn't a big deal. With that out of the way, she did add that while she was apologetic for what she'd said, she was also really pissed off about whatever Claire had been saying about her and her relationship, since not one word of it happened to be true. She even said that it was her boyfriend who had approached her because he'd taken that joke way too seriously, and Claire had laughed along with her when she'd first said it. So this innocent little act was all a lie, and a stupid one at that, since she had the screenshot of Thomas's text to prove that she was telling the truth. Not just that, she also added that Claire had referred to Thomas as a catch, and she definitely wasn't joking, so people could make of that whatever they wanted to. But she thought it was important for our friends to know all the facts before they started attacking us for no reason. Obviously, a lot of people still thought that it was all her fault for saying whatever she said in the first place, but then some of them were a little more reasonable and agreed that Claire didn't have any business gossiping about her and spreading absolute lies like that. As of now, our friends are pretty divided, and as much as we'd like to say that we don't care or that it doesn't affect us, of course it does. Everyone needs their friends to a certain degree, at the very least, and we've always been extroverted social beings. What really sucks is that some of our friends have completely cut us off and have chosen to side with Claire instead. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, since Claire hasn't unblocked us anywhere yet and hasn't even responded to any of our posts, and it seems unlikely that she will either. But I just hope that people can see who's lying to them and pretending to be innocent, and who's brave enough to accept their fault instead of spreading nasty lies about other people. As far as we know, most of our friends think that Michelle was out of line, and I'm just a fool. And while both of those things might be true, at least none of us are liars. Michelle's been upset about this whole thing ever since she fought with Claire, and rightfully so, since they'd been friends since their college days, so this is not good. I'm at my wit's end right now. Update 6. 1 week since the last update, and fingers crossed this will be the final one. For starters, Claire and Thomas broke up. Thomas dumped Claire, to be more specific. As it turned out, she'd forced him to block us everywhere, so he hadn't been able to see the post that Michelle had put up regarding Claire. But some friends of his showed it to him, and I guess the fact that she'd called him a catch offended him because he felt reduced to his bank balance, so he just left. Not only that, Claire had also been making him pay for every single thing and had racked up a huge debt on his credit card that he'd given her for emergency use. The catch thing just confirmed for him that Claire had more feelings for his money than she did for him. And he hadn't been that into her in the first place, as had been proven when he tried to take Michelle out as well, so it wasn't much of a heartbreak for him as it was for Claire. She'd been hysterical and has been blaming it all on us and accusing us of sabotaging her simply because we were two broke jokers who were jealous of her perfectly happy relationship and couldn't stand it. She even went so far as to say that our whole fight at the restaurant was staged as well, so that she'd let her guard down and end up telling Thomas everything, which would eventually lead to this. I mean, I wish we were the evil geniuses that she's making us out to be, but truth be told, none of us had seen anything coming. But she should have given the fact that she'd been misusing her boyfriend's credit card. We've been hearing about it from some of our more talkative friends, since our old friends are still not talking to us, even though they now know for a fact that we weren't lying. In their eyes, we're still the culprits who ruined our own friend's happy relationship out of jealousy. Sadly, they can't see that Claire herself is responsible for this, but that's on them. We don't feel that sad anymore because honestly, we're way too busy now with our own lives. Michelle finally quit her job and she's starting at a new company that her uncle asked her to join for a much higher salary and position. Not just because she's his niece, but also because she's just that qualified and dedicated. I'm happy for her, honestly, and I'm going to throw her a party to distract her from whatever's been happening for the past couple of weeks. God knows we could do with a bit of a distraction. And even I'm in the talks for a promotion at work right now, if I go by the office gossip. So hopefully that'll happen by the end of this month as well. Ah, well, at least this whole Claire thing is done and dusted. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.